So this is the second of our Faithfully Doubting God series. And it's lessons again from the life of Thomas, but this time we're going to focus on belief, not just the doubt, that faithful doubt. Here's the scripture from John 20, starting in verse 24. Thomas was one of the 12. He was called Didymus, the twin. He was not with the other disciples when Jesus came, so they told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "First I must see the marks in his hands. I must put my finger where the nails were. I must put my hand into his side. Only then will I believe what you say." A week later, Jesus' disciples were in the house again. Thomas was with them, even though the doors were locked. Jesus came in and stood among them. He said, "May peace be with you." And then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands? Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you believed. Blessed are those who have not seen me, but have still believed." Jesus did many other miraculous signs in front of the disciples, but they're not written down in this book. But these are written down so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. And if you believe this, you will have life because you belong to him. So let's talk about belief. Thomas doesn't just believe, he's determined not to believe. He will not. Now, in fairness to Thomas, no one else in John's Easter account believed without seeing. The beloved disciple comes close when he believes based on the empty tomb and abandoned grave clothes, but Socrates observed, the wisest of persons is the one who can recognize that he or she does not know everything. Thomas, his very doubting indicated he thought he knew more than he did. He was sure the resurrection was not possible. I wonder if his twin had died and he knew the finality of death. Maybe he was frustrated with Jesus and he's frustrated, and Jesus is trying to console what he should know is inconsolable. Today, we struggle with that. Father Ronald Ralsher of the Shattered Lantern calls practical atheism. He contends today that we are the children of Western culture, postmodern adult children of the Enlightenment, struggle with practical atheism. Our consciousness is clouded with narcissism, pragmatism, and unbridled restlessness, so much so that we are contemplatively asleep. The road back is not a question of finding the right answers, but in living in a certain way to approach reality and relationships with a certain set of attitudes, a proper praxis. That means practice. And like the Virgin Mary, after certain gestation process, eventually you'll give birth to Jesus. God enters the world at the conclusion of this gestation process. We have to live in such a way that we give birth to God in our lives. Now that's a whole mouthful, right? Here's what else he says. He routinely urges us to check our own comfort zone, such as endeavor to constantly discern your motivation. That is, be suspicious when the glory of God and your own glory habitually harmonize. In other words, if you're too comfortable with the way you and God are so alike, you've missed something important. And then he says, enter into a vulnerability of Christ, into his unwillingness to protect himself against the pain that as he fulfills God's will. You might need Thomas's doubt to make sense of your own. We learn from this story that just telling someone of the hope and the promise of Jesus isn't enough. Everyone needs to experience Jesus personally, not just hear of him, but experience him. We learn from this story of Thomas that Jesus dares to intrude right in the middle of our lives without warning, without setting up an appointment, without getting on your day timer, without getting in your computer calendar and deciding which one you want to add it to. So we don't have to fake it anymore, pretending we understand what we do in church or that our tradition and preferences are what make a difference in people's lives. They don't. Jesus offers proof, lots of proof, that we weren't just dealing with a ghost or a spirit, but an actual resurrection, a resurrection of the body. Jesus offers proof, but the only proof Thomas really needs is his friend and God. Thomas is the first person in the New Testament to call Jesus God, not just the Son of God. No longer doubting, but his faith is rewarded. The reason John's gospel is to help, the reason for John's gospel is to help us who have not seen believe. Believe so you can belong. And when you belong, it will help you believe. And then it just becomes this circle that keeps growing, like ever widening circles. See, belief comes from belonging to the life of the world. Belonging confirms that belief. Doubt is not despair. Doubt can bring us closer to God. It can be the beginning of a new life, not known by our past. Peter is not denying Peter. Mark is not runaway naked Mark. What label have you been saddled with? Saul becomes Paul. Simon becomes Peter. Who do you need to become today? Because Jesus can do that. So your challenge this week is to ask God to give you a new beginning as you proclaim, just like Thomas did, my Lord and my God. How do you live faithfully in doubt? You just believe in the one who says, let me show you. Have a good week.